She's asking you a question. Why are you looking at me? She wants to hear from you.
Let me tell you why Violet's looking at you, Riley. It's because you've tried to blindside her, but you're not willing to do it yourself. You're hiding behind your friend.
Why were you still on the app after you were adamant about him not being on the app? Because that's weird. That's a little strange to me.
Why you do that with me?
Now, before we dive into Riley's sneaky attempt to force an answer from Violet, let's rewind back to the start of this episode. So, when we last saw the pair, tensions were at a high. Riley had confronted Violet about a message she received of a shirtless man. Now, they didn't really get to the bottom of that issue, and Riley wasn't happy with what he heard or saw. But even still, he went ahead with meeting Violet's family for the very first time. And that meeting didn't exactly go to plan either. So when we join them on this episode at a war museum, it's immediately obvious that something is weighing on Violet's mind. She wants to talk to Riley about their cultural differences.
And let him know how he's roots in Vietnam and how you need to learn more Vietnamese culture if you want to be with me.
Now, it's interesting here that Violet has something on her mind and she's not afraid to bring it up. She's quite forthright in addressing the issue. So what is this issue, the cultural issue that she wants to bring up? Well, it turns out that Riley really didn't do a good job at impressing Violet's mum last night.
My mom talked with me. She say you are jealous and want to control me.
Now, this shouldn't come as too much of a shock to Riley because Violet's mum did in fact raise these issues directly with him. She told him she thought he had a hot temper. She'd seen firsthand the way that Riley made Violet cry over the phone. And while we haven't really seen that side to him so far, it has definitely been hinted at more than once. But there's also another reason why Violet's mum isn't happy.
When you come visit my home, you don't buy a flower or some chocolates for her. Very bad.
It was very bad?
Yeah, very bad in Vietnam.
Now, I actually don't think that that's a cultural issue. I think it's the same in America as it is in Vietnam. Showing up to dinner at someone's house, meeting their parents for the very first time and going there empty-handed is quite rude. But I also don't understand why Violet didn't remind him. Like, he is in Vietnam for the first time. If she knew what a big deal this would be, she could have helped him out a bit. She could have said, for example, "Oh, do you want to swing by a florist before we go and see my mum?" But she didn't do that. So now, as a result of this criticism, Riley is on the defensive.
I do need to learn more about your culture. My question to you is, when are you going to learn about my culture?
Riley says that he never meant to disrespect Violet or any of her family, but he now takes the opportunity to turn the tables on her. To be fair, that is a valid question, and Riley brings up the fact that Violet was making fun of him to her friend.
120 centimeter your belly. Wow, very big. Yeah, xấu.
What?
I say you ugly, you very bad.
In America, that's rude, that's disrespectful, especially when a woman says that about the man that she's with.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Wait, what exactly does he mean by especially when a woman says that about a man she's with? Why does a woman saying it make it worse? If a man were to call his girlfriend ugly, is that somehow less bad, Riley? I don't know. There's something about the way he said that, but also the swiftness with which he changed that entire conversation. He went from apologising for not bringing a gift to somehow blaming Violet, which made his apology feel disingenuous. One thing is for sure here though, it does show just how deeply Riley was affected by Violet's comments. And he goes on to bring up something surprising.
I've seen one other person of my skin complexion here in the whole time I've been here. You're not accustomed to us, so when you say it, it sounds like it's an attack.
Riley's added a whole new level of complexity here. Like, we certainly can't judge him for how he's feeling, but I feel it's a bit unfair to attach a racial undertone to what Violet was saying. Sure, she called him fat and ugly, but she was treating him in exactly the same way as she'd treat her own Vietnamese friends. But that's the key difference. Violet needs to realise that he isn't one of her Vietnamese friends, and she needs to act accordingly.
Because I'm 6'4", I am dark, and when you say, oh, he's ugly, you start feeding the stereotype that if you're light-skinned, black, you're prettier.
Riley's right. When you stick out from the norm and someone calls you ugly, you can't help but assume it's the feature that's making you stick out that also makes you ugly. But let's also keep in mind here that Riley is a deeply insecure person. I think it says a lot about him that his insecurity is showing itself through the assumption that being ugly has something to do with his race or his skin tone.
Chưa bao giờ cả nghĩ rằng là tôi cố tình làm cho Riley buồn, và để cho mối quan hệ của chúng tôi tốt đẹp hơn thì tôi cần phải thay đổi bản thân tôi hơn một chút.
Violet's dating a black man now, and she needs to be prepared for what that entails, especially in Vietnam, where it's obviously not the norm. Violet can't just look the other way and say it's Vietnamese culture, or she'll further alienate Riley. But the fact that these two are having these complex conversations and are both prepared to make compromises is actually making their future look very positive.
I'm willing to try because I care about you.
I care about you too.
Look how much that meant to Violet. Her entire face softened. This might be the most genuine reaction we've seen from her yet, and I do believe her when she says she cares about him. But unless they get over their fear of saying the L word, there's a big chance that their progress will just stagnate again. Either way, they have made progress today, and to celebrate this, the pair arrange a fancy dinner. But yet again, Violet is the first to show up.
Dù là những ngày qua chúng tôi có những chút hiểu lầm với nhau, nhưng mà hôm nay chúng tôi đang ở một nơi rất là chúng tôi hy vọng rằng là mọi sự sẽ tốt đẹp hơn và chúng tôi cùng nhau phát triển hơn.
It's very ironic that tonight is meant to be about celebrating their improved communication. But yet again, Riley has kept Violet waiting on him. That after she'd previously told him that men don't do that in her culture.
You know, in Vietnam, we have tradition, men always wait women.
Oh,
Yeah.
all right, so next time I wait for you.
And while Violet doesn't make a deal of it, in fact she doesn't even mention it, it does make me question just how much Riley really listens to her. Is he all talk and no action? This was the moment for him to prove that he'd taken on board what she had to say, yet he still couldn't get there 5 minutes before her. Either way, it's clear that Violet is glowing. She's very happy tonight.
You see Violet's face? She's impressed. This right here is why I came here, for this moment right here.
This feels like a really big moment for these two, almost like a restart. This is the sort of dinner that they should have had on the very first night, but both of them are now happy and comfortable with one another. But now that they know each other face to face a little better, they can have those deep conversations that Riley needs to feel connected.
In Vietnam, if your family don't like me, we don't get married.
I understand that.
Violet continues a conversation about cultural differences. She asks, for example, what it would mean for them if Riley's sister didn't like her. Riley explains that this wouldn't be the be-all and end-all. If they were to get married, Violet would always be his priority, regardless of what family think. But it becomes obvious that Violet's not actually in tune with how Riley's family really see her.
Your daddy like me.
I don't trust him.
I contact with him very good.
And I know he was trying to build a relationship with him.
It seems like, from Violet's perspective, her messages to Riley's dad were an attempt to build a relationship, and she feels that she's succeeded. The thing is, we know that Riley's dad actually felt very uncomfortable with Violet's numerous messages. Messages that were complaining about Riley. We also saw how angry this made Riley when he found out.
He never knows how is true love, so he forever will be alone. Really, this is what she says to you?
And I did not comment on it because I don't want to get in the middle of anything.
When we argued, you contact my father and you said really bad things about me.
Tonight we don't talk about
No.
If you don't hear me, I go back.
It now appears as though Violet isn't open to talking about everything. She never seems willing to talk about the bad things, as she calls them. But these bad things are just her behaviour. Okay, I get that maybe she didn't want to talk about it on their first night. Fair enough. But now they're in a position where they are more comfortable with each other. They should be able to have these conversations. Yet she's still not willing to try. Maybe I've got it wrong. Maybe it's Violet who's all talk, no action.
As always, she's not willing to talk about it, or she's avoiding my questions, and it just makes me feel uncomfortable, and it's a little rude. I'm glad that you already get along with my dad.
Look, it's very clear that Violet's the boss here. As much as Riley wishes he was in control, as much as he might like to be, he always rolls over because he's too scared to lose her. The second the conversation gets tough, he backs down, he pacifies her, he gives in to her. And he does it again this time. He says he's happy she gets along with his father, and then conveniently changes the subject to his friend Tiffany. Tiffany, he says, wants to meet Violet. And then, for some weird reason, he decides that right here, right now, on their date, is the perfect time to call her.
Hi, Tiffany. Nice to see you.
Nice, thank you. Nice to see you too.
So I'm gonna give you to her. I gotta run to the bathroom, okay?
I'm sorry, what on earth is happening right now? This was supposed to be a cute romantic dinner for them. But now, Riley's forcing Violet to have a video call with someone she's never even heard of before. Like, why would he do that? Why right now? Well, he explains that he's worried Violet will never be ready to have these hard conversations with him. So, it turns out, he's recruited Tiffany to do the hard work for him.
I'm hoping that Tiffany can get Violet to open up a little bit more if I'm not around. Maybe she's holding back because it's me there, and hopefully they'll have a real candid conversation.
Riley, have you lost your mind? He's pretty much asked Tiffany to grill Violet about things she's not comfortable talking about, but he's pretending it's all okay. It's a classic Riley move. But in what world does he think Violet will be able to have a good, honest conversation with someone she's just met if she's clearly not even comfortable opening up with him? It's just not gonna happen.
How do you feel about him?
He's a good man. He's a girl.
He's a good guy. Yeah, he is.
Note Violet's smile here. She's still, at this point, happy to talk to Tiffany. But then things take a dramatic turn. Tiffany begins to ask things that really Riley should have had the guts to ask for himself. He claims he wanted the girls to talk without him being there, but he returns at precisely the right time for Tiffany to bring up the dating app issue.
Why were you still on the app after you were adamant about him not being on the app? Because that's weird. That's a little strange to me.
Now look at Violet's face. She's completely unimpressed. She's looking for a reason to end the conversation, and she claims she can't hear properly. How convenient. Now, while Violet may have secrets and may have things that she's not ready to talk about yet, we don't know what those are. So I want to focus my attention back on Riley for a second. I think it says a lot about him that the same evening he's beginning to build up trust, he feels a need to involve a third party to get answers on his behalf. There's no other way to see this. This is Riley bringing his friend to fight his battles for him.
She's asking you a question. Why are you looking at me? She wants to hear from you.
Why you do that?
Let me ask you a question. When I was at your house and your family asked me questions, did I answer them?
Riley keeps saying she wants to know, but it's obvious it's him that wants to know. Why do you do that with me? Asks Violet. She feels completely let down, and it seems to me that it's one step forward, two steps back right now. Any trust that Riley had built has now just disappeared.